Hello and welcome to another fully live Wednesday Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today I'm going to take your questions live as well as going through our YouTube comments, answering those. I'm going to go through the Discord server, and I'm also going to talk about a couple of things that I have been working on this week. Good to see everybody in the chat already. Hello, and if you haven't already seen it, our short URL that goes to our Discord server is up and running again. So if you want to be part of our Discord community and sometimes share with me some of the things that I get to go on and share with the rest of everyone else, then go ahead and check out Nugget, that's nugget.lol. It got reported for spam a couple weeks back, but then was able to be wrestled back into being alive. So feel free to join us there, where we've had a lot of great questions and other feedback over the week. All right, so good to see that Cowboy Bebop is excited for the stream. Happy to go into any questions any of you have. Of course, you know, my field of research is Wi-Fi, OSINT, and of course, I created the Nullbyte channel. So if you have any questions about any of those things, we're also going to be talking about electronics and code. So I am very excited about AI. I think it's super cool and super useful. And I've been writing it I've been using it to write a lot of example code. So if I'm doing a very simple thing in a language like CircuitPython, it's really awesome for me to be able to communicate with something like Bing and have it go out and get all the information for the circuit board I'm working with and write code. Now, when you're writing electronic code for microcontrollers, like this little nugget I have right here, you're usually writing in a language like Arduino, CircuitPython, or if something terrible has happened to you, Espressif IDF. If that's you, then I'm sorry. So if you are writing in CircuitPython, then you might be writing code that looks something like this. And can I just enlarge it? Oh, oops, I'm enlarging the wrong window. Hold on. Please just, yes, okay, cool. So this is like pretty simple code. There's only like 80 or so lines here. And really all that needs to be told to something like Bing is maybe like what the pinouts are, like what everything's connected to, and then what libraries to use. So this is kind of an interesting experiment I've been running over the last couple of weeks to see if I can take a known platform, in this case, the ESP32S2 in an S2 mini module, and then just tell that to Bing and have it generate code. So I've actually been pretty successful at this. Let me see if I can bring it up. I've been pretty successful at being able to iterate CircuitPython code and be able to change values to take the same setup and have it do different things. So if anybody else has actually tried this and gotten good results with writing code, I kind of want to hear about it, because I'm over here mostly using CircuitPython, which is a pretty niche language, which often Bing used to get confused with MicroPython and give me code that I couldn't use. But this week, I want to kind of show you guys what I created. Let's see. I don't think that I'm going to be able to make this look too good just because of the way things are set up. But let me turn off this screen and turn this on. So I'm fascinated by the fact that there is capacitance on these pins. So, all right, there we go. It's on the stream. So on these microcontroller pins, it can detect a change in capacitance, meaning like a change in the electrical current around it. And that could be as simple as someone's like hand kind of coming up on this. So let me go to my CircuitPython code. So what I asked Bing to do was listen on a certain pin for capacitance, and then both change the color of the LED and the tone on this little buzzer, piezo buzzer that I attached, depending on the capacitance. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can trigger the code to run. All right, so it's going up the Roy G. Biv scale. So right now it's like at an orange alert level. As my hand comes in, it turns green, and then it turns blue. And then when I touch it, it turns purple. And if I touch the very tip, it should turn violet. And you can kind of hear a change in tone. This is AI generated, and I had to coach it maybe 3 or 4 times. It took me maybe 5 minutes to make this code. But for just taking a buzzer, a wire, and then a microcontroller that can measure capacitance, this is pretty cool. I'm going to stop this horrible noise. And actually, I will share my screen. You can see it's also, for debugging, it's outputting the capacitance, so the value of the capacitance. And I was running into problems where like it didn't know where to set the capacitance to, and it would crash because the value would go too high or too low. But after a couple iterations and after telling it to like, take a sampling value when it starts up, this actually worked pretty well. So while trying to make these like fun beginner projects with simple circuits, I was able to actually use Bing as a starting point and have it write some of the code that very quickly was able to get these hardware pieces playing together. So if you haven't considered playing with hardware, if you haven't maybe tried out like making a circuit and seeing if you can stitch things together, Bing was surprisingly good at this. And I was pretty amazed at how quickly I could use a couple pieces in a circuit and have Bing reach out, read the PDF information for that microcontroller, and then write code that actually works. So if you've done this, please let me know, because I'm interested to hear whether or not this is something that other people are trying. It looks like our chat overlay has crashed again. This is something that happens relatively often on our stream. But I'll be looking at, I will be looking at a number of things to make sure that I can see. Chicken.nug is the best idea for like, yeah, no, I would agree with you. I think that would be, a really good link for us to reserve in the future. I don't know that .nug is an extension yet, but we can certainly petition that. All right, so that was my little demonstration on how you can take just an idea for a circuit and then just ask Bing to do it. Like the fact that we have free AI that's able to write code for you, where you can just tell it a couple pins and then have it modify stuff. All right, so what I kind of wanted to try to do on the show is I wanted to see whether or not it's possible to actually write new code and turn this into, one of those like teleprompter, or not teleprompter. Oh my gosh, I'm blocking on it. I want to do Morse code. Yes, I want to make it into a Morse code typing machine. And originally I was also using this tinfoil because if you attach the pin to it and kind of tape it down, you can actually use this as an antenna and make it so that it's a presence detector. So when you sit down next to it, it actually detects you much earlier. So if I wanted to modify this code, I could probably, if I share my screen again, just take this code here, go into Bing and say, let's start a new topic, and say, I want to write in Morse code. I will type using the capacitance of a pin, modify this code to make this pin into an on/off switch and turn on the buzzer when there is a touch detected. Okay, so pretty general instructions. Like I'm gonna just dump this code and be like, you figure it out, Bing. So an example might be you find a library that you really like for controlling a NeoPixel or doing something cool, and you're like, all right, that's great. This example is cool, and it shows a lot of things, but it doesn't do what I want to do. Maybe I could just feed it to Bing and ask Bing to kind of regurgitate this code and see if it actually works with hardware. So it's explaining its AI decisions, it's giving us some justification, but whatever, let's just copy this and just see what happens. So I'm gonna try pasting this, save it, and sometimes we get an error. This time we don't. So right now it's red. I'm touching it. Oh wait, this is the wire. Touching the wire, I see the value goes up, but nothing happens. All right, so that's our first piece of debugging. So I'm gonna press Control-C, cancel it, and say, this was our value. And then I'm gonna ask it again. All right, so I said the LED just turned red. It didn't turn green when I touched it. The max volume we got for a touch was around this. So now it's gonna like modify the code and iterate it. So if I'm, if I'm someone who doesn't understand programming, like I'm pretty still firmly in the realm of being able to just like modify, a couple requests and keep going back and forth. So here's a good question. Is the ESP32 better, or is the ESP30 uh, or is the ESP8266 better? So I'm working in this example with a ESP32S2, and the reason that it's used better, I think, than either of those two is it has native USB, so it shows up as a USB device. I can modify files on it. It's super, super easy to work with, and it has Wi-Fi capabilities. The only thing it doesn't have is Bluetooth. So if you really want something that kind of does everything, the only thing that the ESP32 chip doesn't do is native USB, and that's a bummer. But then again, neither does the ESP8266. So I'm kind of telling you there's a third option that's better than these two. But of the two, neither of which supports native USB, I would say the ESP32 is better for most applications. So yeah, that would be my assessment. Unless you want to do like funky Wi-Fi stuff. If you want to do funky Wi-Fi stuff specifically, like sending out spooky weird packets, then the ESP8266 is better. But this cannot even grab handshakes because it can't read anything except the metadata. So this Wi-Fi chip basically can read like what type of packet it is, where it's going to, who sent it, but it can't read the contents of that packet. It's truncated actually by the chip. So it's not useful for a lot of stuff, but it is useful for like, war driving. All right, so I'm gonna save this, reload it. Okay, it's turning green, but the buzzer's not going off. So that's the last thing we need to fix. All right, cool. So it seems pretty accurate too. It seems to be able to turn green when I touch it. So then we'll go back for one iteration. This is great. The only problem is that the buzzer isn't going off when the wire is touched. That's it. Other than that, you did a good job, Bing. So this has been kind of my programming workflow for small, short examples where I need to show off a property of a circuit, or I want to make a project really, really quickly just to test something out. This is something where if I'm making a very fast prototype and I have some electronics I can throw together, no, there we go. Oh, I got scared. Then Bing is always lurking behind the AI. That's the most terrifying part about all this. So again, like a lot of people are surprised when I say that I use Bing a lot recently, but this is kind of like how I've found it to be very useful. I'm gonna try saving it again. Let's see. I hear a click. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. So let's tell it that we want to do a ton. So I'm kind of just live coding just so you can see the way I've been doing this. But all right, here's a question. Have you tried Open Interpreter? It breaks down your goal into tasks, executing them one by one in your computer until completion. It supports GPT-4 AI or local AI model. Okay, so that's cool. So let's talk about that. That's a kind of like auto GPT style thing where you take a task that's complicated and instead of having the AI try to just do that task on its face, it instead breaks it into sub goals so that more complicated things can be done. I have played with that, and the problem was at the time, one of the subtasks would get misinterpreted. It wouldn't have enough context, or it would assume something that was wrong, and I would just get like a terrible result. So as a result, I haven't used Auto GPT for a while just because it was not very good. But Chat GPT 4 has really improved, and especially if it has the context for what type of system you're working with, I believe that it actually probably could do that in a pretty powerful and useful way. So no, I haven't tried that, but I am really curious to try, because the only thing you have to keep an eye on is making sure that the AI doesn't get into trouble making assumptions that aren't true. All right, so let's try to finish this off. This is good, but it clicks instead of buzzes when the wire is touched. The buzzer should make a tone the whole time that it's being touched. Here is the code to modify. Just in case, you forgot. Sometimes it starts to like imagine things or add variables that aren't there or refer to libraries that aren't there, but it seems like the problem of it like imagining like things has gotten a little bit better. Hello, 8-bit. It's been a while since I've seen you as well. Um, all right, so again, we are basically using AI and a kind of casual conversation about our goals here to write in a specific and I might say somewhat niche language for hardware. So this is something I think is really cool. I think we're almost at our goal here, and I basically just want to be able to do Morse code. That's what I want to make. So I am going to attempt to use this latest code that Bing has given me. And again, this is free, which I think is also really cool. We're running, we've got no errors, we've got an average. It's working. Okay, so for counting, that was maybe 4 iterations to take a piece of sample code and make it into a completely different thing. So I'm pretty impressed. I think that if a free service can take someone who's not really doing any programming here, I didn't adjust any variables. Really, the only thing I did was I told it what pin stuff was attached to and what microcontroller I was working with and gave it some example code. So if you are new at electronics, this could be something like finding a library you want to play with, finding a piece of hardware, plugging it into the right pins. You don't want to plug it into like, directly from 5 volt to ground or something and have it explode. But like, reasonably maybe have ChatGPT suggest which pins to plug it into, and then try out controlling it in a way that you understand. A lot of these microcontrollers have hidden features. Like this has a temperature sensor on the inside of it. It's usually kind of hot because it's kind of designed to measure the CPU, but it still is able to measure its ambient temperature. It also has touch capacitance, and it has the ability to work with outputs like a buzzer. Now, technically, you're supposed to use like an analog pin to control this buzzer, but Bing was smart enough to figure out how to use a digital pin to kind of manually like crappily like do a weird job of controlling it. So I think this is definitely the future when it comes to people being able to make their own low cost electronics. I think being able to breadboard the stuff and try it out and iterate it, again, that was 4 times to take a piece of example code with the right pinouts and make it into something that actually works. I'm really impressed by that. So yeah, I really enjoy how free AI has made it easier for people who are new at electronics to try something out like this and actually make something that functions. So that's one thing that I've been working on this week. Another thing, oh, and we have let's see. We have another question. What is your advice for a new hacker who wants to contribute, I am assuming, to the hacker community and InfoSec community and bug bounty hunting community through YouTube videos and blog articles? That is a great question. So there's a couple different things you could do. And all of this, I would say, kind of depends on what your strengths are. Now, for me, what was very useful was making basic proof of concepts to test my knowledge. So if I was learning like how to pull data down from APIs and make like a little command line like tool for myself, I would turn around and try to find maybe a data source or an API that's useful for people who are maybe not technical, like maybe people who are doing an investigation, but maybe they know how to run a command line tool, but they don't know how to access the API themselves. Being able to make a tool like that is really, really useful. And you can do it as like a baby. Like you really do not need to know very much about how stuff works in order to make it happen. That's what I really like about the InfoSec community. I made a couple tools called, let me see if I can find one. I'll use Bing. If you're so smart, Bing. What is the GitHub link for the OSINT tool, LA OSINT? Let's see if you're really smart, Bing. So this is just because I don't want to Google it. But I made a tool called LA OSINT, and oh, it can't find it. Don't you own GitHub, Microsoft? Okay, well, all right. I'll find it. But I made a tool originally called LA OSINT, which I'm going to find in a browser that is not Edge. You've lost the privilege for that. And it is some of the worst. It's like the first result. Come on, Bing. Like, what are we doing here? It was like some of the worst code that I made 3 years ago when I was very first learning Python. And this got written up numerous times, and people found it useful. I brought this example up a couple times, but like it has a bunch of. Oh, okay. It doesn't. It has 14 stars. Whatever. But little things like this that make it easy for somebody else to come in and search for a business by their, or rather find any health code violations by a specific business if that's what you're researching. These are little ways where as you learn and teach yourself, you can turn around and make something that's maybe going to automate someone else's job or make it more useful for someone who doesn't know how to do that yet. The other thing that I would recommend doing if you can is if you are making YouTube videos, be really careful about the way that you represent yourself when you're new. When you are a beginner, stick to Linux stuff. Stick to things that are not like, like writing your first piece of ransomware or whatever, because YouTube and other platforms are super, super strict about InfoSec content. I have found that a lot of people really, really don't um, understand like the point of information security. So even if you're talking about like an ongoing threat and you want to just like show how easy it is to do this thing, if it seems in any way like an instructional guide to commit a crime, you will get your content taken down over and over and over, and it's very frustrating, and you might even get your entire account banned. As a relatively young YouTube channel, like coming up after all the established people had kind of like claimed their space, it was really important to be able to make sure that we were explaining what we were doing, and people knew that we were an educational like show that would maybe push the boundaries a little bit, but wouldn't, out and out break them. We weren't like supposed to be. Yes, we weren't supposed to be a um, place for people to learn cybercrime. So when you are very first starting out, you need to make sure that you keep your content to be very defensible, because while it's nice to get viral attention, it's not nice to have your entire effort shut down. And especially if you have other people on your team that are making content, it kind of falls to you eventually. When you're a one-man show, then you can be a little bit more risky and then like restart your channel if you really want to. It's just kind of inconvenient. But yeah, I would say in general, don't get yourself investigated or shut down by being too edgy too early on, and stick to teaching people lessons that you've learned recently and understand well. I would say that is the best way to contribute to your peers, is to teach the foundational stuff in a way that's fun, that's exciting, that's interesting, and that doesn't require you to stick your neck out and possibly get burned. Also realize that online attention comes with its own burden. So if you are making online content that gets shared a lot, it's going to come back to you. I had someone where I talked about, all right, so I made a TikTok where I talked about businesses that I saw out in the wild that were making mistakes that I'd already warned them about, that weren't going to do anything about them, and like why I thought they were a problem. So I made one about a Dunkin' Donuts, and it blew up on TikTok. It got tons of attention, and like a day and a half later, somebody called my work and tried to get me fired by telling them that I had made an instructional guide to how to hack a McDonald's in this like furious voicemail, and triggered like a full investigation to like find out what was going on. So that made me feel like people could affect me at work potentially. So just realize that when you do make content publicly, the whole goal is to get noticed and get attention, right? Well, sometimes that attention comes back to get you. And if your primary job is not making content like mine is, then you might be working in a company that doesn't want the attention and doesn't like it. So that's another factor to realize when you're trying to get out there and trying to make stuff for other people. Sometimes you can bring a lot of attention on yourself if you do a good job. So just be prepared for that. I would say also that in general, the level of toxicity in the InfoSec community a lot of the time depends on whether or not you're a woman. A lot of the female content creators I've worked with have reported way crazier stuff happening than I've personally had happen to me. I have people like shout out my address when I show Wi-Fi details and other things that are like a little bit creepy, but nothing compared to what happens to some of the female content creators. So for the ones that are out there, please support them. Like, they go through a lot in order to just put out content, and they get the same type of harassment that I get with people calling their work and stuff like that. If somebody doesn't reply to them and the person feels like they were not treated respectfully or whatever. It's crazy being a content creator. So just realize that it's great to put out content, but the more you put yourself out there, the more you are making yourself a target for people to reach out to with crazy questions. I get a lot of people that are very angry that I won't commit crimes for them on my Twitter messages. At the end of all my Nullbyte videos, I would always be like, if you have ideas for future episodes, hit me up. And people would be like, hello, sir, I have a crime for you to commit. I have no money and I need to do this for revenge. And I'm just like, no. And it's always like somebody's like, my bride to be is acting suspicious. I need you to like hack into all of her devices. Like, she should, like, you, if you're doing that to a partner, like, you shouldn't be together. So yes, sorry, a little bit of a thing there. But if you are considering making content, you should realize that it is a trade-off. You definitely have people who will just reach out to you and talk to you and as though you owe them something. And that's if you do a good job of reaching out to the community, which is kind of sometimes a nice problem to have. All right. Let's see. Hey, can you make a video for a Packet Squirrel Mark II? Have you seen that like a bunch of our videos on Hack 5 got taken down? No, I'm not making a video on Packet Squirrel. We made some videos on some of the products that Hack 5 previously made, and then some of those products also just like got pulled. So I will be taking a short pause on documenting Hack 5 products. I mean, unless you guys have like a really great one that's like blowing up and is like wild and I've never seen before. In that case, please let me know. But yeah, as of right now, we had a lot of our content on Hack 5 taken down, so I'm not going to be making any Hack 5 videos, at least for a while. All right, so here's a question right up my alley. What would be the best microcontroller for a beginner to start hacking? So I have a couple of different suggestions here. I'm going to pull this up for you just so you have a reference. So I really like CircuitPython, and there are pros and cons of CircuitPython, which I guess I'll get into. So when you are working with a microcontroller for the first time, you're going to be working with pretty much one of three languages. You're going to be working with Arduino, you are going to be working with CircuitPython, or you might be working with MicroPython. Two of those are interpreted languages, and the other is compiled. So Arduino is compiled. It's basically C or C++. It takes more of a programmer's mind to work with, I'll say. It's much less forgiving, but there's tons of libraries everywhere for everything. Anything you've ever thought of doing, someone has made a funky, weird library for it, and it's accessible somewhere in Arduino. If you are less of a master programmer and you're more of an idiot like me, and you need to be able to make some mistakes or speak very generally to the computer about your goals sometimes, then Python is usually the language that I recommend. So if you're a beginner, something that works with CircuitPython or MicroPython is really great. And I prefer CircuitPython also because it works over native USB. So it shows up as a USB drive. You can drag and drop. And if any of these command line things fail you, there's a really simple way you can go back and kind of work with this. Of the microcontrollers I would recommend, the Raspberry Pi Pico and the Raspberry Pi Pico W, whatever the Wi-Fi one is. I really like these for beginners because they're super well documented. They work well on a breadboard. You can plug them in. There's just a bunch of peripherals. The Raspberry Pi Foundation does a really good job of documenting these. I like them a lot. I think they're cool. So what else would I recommend? So there are other microcontrollers out there that are very popular, and some of them are Wemos-based add-on boards for these popular microcontrollers like the ESP8266, the ESP32S2, basically the whole Espressif line. So Espressif makes a bunch of radio connected, I guess I'll call them, microcontrollers that are super low cost and have lots of super useful and cool peripherals. And this is what I use personally for the products that I make. It's what I use for a lot of the labs I do because I'm obsessed with them. On the lowest level, these can run a language called Espressif IDF, which is a torturous nonsense to learn. It is not great. But on top of that, There is Arduino, CircuitPython, and MicroPython libraries that make these very, very useful. So if you're looking for a really cheap microcontroller, the first and cheapest one is going to be a D1 Mini. There's lots of versions of these. I would recommend like this one, or the D1 Mini Pro. But yeah, in general, these are reliable. They do Wi-Fi hacking stuff, but they cannot do things like full packet capture. So you're not going to get a handshake on these ones. You're going to need to go up to a different version. There's also the one that I use, which is the S2 Mini. So this is really cool and exciting. It has native USB. It can do more packet capture. I haven't actually captured a handshake on this yet, but I should try. There's just less documentation around it because it's more new. I highly recommend this one. And this is the one that our USB Nugget is based on. It's just very easy to work with. It's supported by CircuitPython. It's a great microcontroller. This one, I don't care about it. It's not interesting to me. It has no native USB and it has Bluetooth. So maybe useful for like IoT applications where you want to make a Bluetooth app or something. I just don't care about that one. The S3. So the S3 comes in a couple form factors, and this is the only one I care about, the S3 Mini. This is similar to the S2 Mini in that it has native USB, but it also has Bluetooth. So this kind of has it all, but it also has like the least documentation. So the microcontrollers I just gave you are on kind of a spectrum from like most beginner friendly in general, which would be the Raspberry Pi Pico and the Pi Pico W, if that's what it's called, the one with Wi-Fi. And then as far as things that have more features and are broken out, you can slap this onto a breadboard or a prototyping board and really do a ton with it. There's so many pins broken out. Most of them are touch sensitive. Most of them allow you to do things like attach sensors or screens or whatever you want to do. So that's why I really love these. They're also flat on one side, which is very cool. In that you can mount it flat on some other project, and use it to control something. So I'm actually considering moving our Nugget line from the S2 up to the S3 so that we can do like Bluetooth applications and Bluetooth scanning and like, pair and like make like a malicious Bluetooth keyboard, like that sort of fun stuff. So yeah, those would be my recommendations for microcontrollers to check out if you're a beginner. The S3 Mini being the newest and least documented, the S2 Mini being the most stable and probably easy to just get started with, and then the D1 Mini being the one on the Espressif line that would be relatively good for a beginner who wants to do some Wi-Fi basic projects like the dAuthor or something like that, and then all the way over to the Raspberry Pi Pico and Pi Pico W. Hope that answered your question. That's a lot, I know. Thank you for the stars. I appreciate that on my LA OSINT project. So for anybody that's curious, there are a lot of data sources out there that are really, really easy to access and write things around. The same flow that I was showing you guys a little bit ago. Like, let's see, LA City Open Data. So here's the portal that I looked through. If you guys want to write your own OSINT tools or you want to be able to access data sets from the command line, there's so much data available from the city of Los Angeles. So if you go to the data catalog, we can like filter through all the different data types, and yeah, we can see building and safety permit information, list of active businesses. That's my favorite. So here, I can take this and I'll make it a little smaller, and I can see all this information about what types of businesses are in here, what a callback from this looks like. And what I love about these data sets is like there's so many different things. There's previews, there's even example code. So if I go to, let's see, visualize export API, API documentation. It'll have an automatically generated, and as with any city contractor, it's changed hands like 6 times. So the first notice is like, this is now the Insights division of Tyler. The platform is still powered by the same software known as Socratica, but now belongs to Mr. Tyler. I was like, okay, I don't care. I'm just here for the data. So this gives you an endpoint for the API. It shows you how to sign up for tokens, although you can do a certain limited amount of queries without a token. It shows you all the different fields. And then you can go through and you can pivot off of any of these data points. So let's say that I want to do something, a DBA name, okay? I can click on this and it'll show you sample filters. So if I then take this and click on try it, it'll actually run this and come back with results. So this is a way that you can then copy it, and let's say that I want to try it out. What NBC? I don't care. Maybe something comes back, maybe it doesn't. Yellow. I don't know. I'm just looking for any DBA name. I should probably like pay attention to the way the data comes back. But this is how you would then take like the raw data. You would pivot off of like a certain. Let's just do an asterisk. Nothing. I guess I'll have to do the example, which is just a slash. There we go. Okay. So that way we can hit the API, we get information back, and then we can take all this and we can frankly just like feed it to Bing and have it create something that calls out using a specific data point to format this post request, and then pulls back in, or get request probably, and then pulls back information that we're expecting to see, like the description and then like all this other stuff. So I can also see other variables we can probably pivot off of. So yeah, this is cool. Being able to pull data down from multiple different like ways. I'm just gonna try to see if I can do this one and find the same piece of data. No, okay. Well, see, maybe I do need help doing this. But yeah, this is just one way that you can take a data source, find out how the data works, like how you can like pull pieces of information from it. There we go. I just can't have quotes. And then be able to locate pieces of data. I wonder if is my business registered still? Apparently not. Okay, cool. So anyway, this is how I've gotten started with some of my examples for just taking a free data source that I think is interesting. Like, for example, I used to work for Uber Eats, and they were always trying to find the contact information for businesses. And a lot of businesses, especially restaurants, which they're looking for, get health code violations. So I built a couple of tools to find restaurant information by the publicly available health code violations on these businesses that made their contact information notoriously difficult to find and wouldn't put it on their public websites. So lots of different reasons for why this is a useful thing to do. What is the link for this? So I'm going to put this in the chat. This is currently the LA City data set, which is data.lacity.org, and then it's just /browse. You can find all sorts of interesting data here and make it a little bit easier to like search through these catalogs and maybe even link data sets together. Some things I've done will be when I'll do a search, I'll have it look up information, and then if there's a positive result, I'll have it take other fields and automatically search other city databases to come back and create a profile for a specific business. So let's say that I like search for a business and then I find a positive hit on like a health code violation. I can then pull in all that information and then like be like, okay, this person who, you know, is the contact for the business or like the registered owner, do they exist in any other city databases that have that as a field that I can pull in? And then I can be like, okay, rather than, you know, like searching for all the subsidiaries and all the other like businesses owned by this one corporation or this one individual, I can just build in like multiple searches within these data sets that are publicly available to make something that creates a profile on a business and end up getting all the different subsidiaries or all the different properties that one business owns by tagging them all together. So if you've got an eye for data sets, if you want to make your own tools, there's also data.gov, which is a national version of this where you can access national data sets. But I really like getting into it on like an individual city business kind of basis. So if you live in a relatively large city, I guarantee you that your city has some sort of open data platform that you can practice your Python or maybe AI herding skills to create a command line interface or a compound search. One of my favorite things to do. Oh, yes. Okay, so then we also have somebody hating on LED throwies. So what is an LED throwie? Well, let's go ahead and go to this weird camera that I've never turned on before. There we go. So when we have a battery like this, which in this case is a little lithium ion battery. So I hope that there's not too much like lead acid or something in this battery. But these little 3.3 volt batteries are able to be used as a signal. Now, obviously, you don't want to leave them outside forever. You want to take them down when they stop lighting up. But these can be seen for a really, really long distance. And there's two kind of ways to do this. This is such an extreme tight view. This is obviously like meant for like showcasing like electronics, like really close up. So I apologize for how huge this coin cell battery is. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's really big. All right. So what are the uses for this and what kind of things can you do with them? Now, obviously, as our astute commenter points out, you don't want to be putting e-waste into the environment. So you don't want to put these out in a place where they're going to be long ignored or forgotten about. But I have two different types of LEDs that I can show off how they work. And what these are good for, I find, is doing things like marking trails or other things where people are going to be going from point to point. I've been using them specifically to mark out parts of a route so that as you go to each one, you can see another one present on the next point of the route. And this is usually for things like games, events, or other things where, you know, you're able to pick it up at the end. And there's either like a hunt or like you're trying to like find things, or you just want to put these inside of like a balloon or something cool. So what's interesting about these is it's so tight in. I love this. So this is a single LED. It's almost like useless how tight it is. And this is actually, it goes in so much further than this. I'm going to have to get a better desk camera. We do have one that's more expensive. This is one is just, oh wait, can I zoom out? Let's see if I can zoom out. All right, so this is either all the way zoomed out or all the way zoomed in. I guess we'll see. Oh my gosh, it's all the way zoomed in. We're looking at like the atoms between the battery. All right, it's all right, that's all the way zoomed out again. So this is the surface of the battery. Trust me on that. And then these are 2 pins, which I will get into the screen. There we go. Yeah, 2 pins. So one of them is long, one of them is short, and we can literally just put one on one side of the battery and one on the other. And what's unique about this LED, which I'm gonna rig up right now, is that it actually changes on its own. So I'm gonna try to get this right. There we go. All right, so now this is finally a good idea. All right, so I just have to move it so you can see the right part. All right, so this LED has a little controller inside of it that actually will cycle through all the available colors automatically with just 2 pins. So if you're creating something, which again, you are able to pick up afterwards, you can create these little LED throwies with just 2 components, an LED and then one of these LEDs that automatically, a 3.3 volt battery, and then an LED that cycles through all the colors automatically. This is a pretty old battery, so I feel like it's not doing really much justice to the blue and purple. In fact, it looks like it's barely on at all. But if you add a like 800 ohm resistor or so, I've been getting these to be able to last for about 5 days or so. I'm actually on day 5. I'm still checking back to see when it dies. So of course, yes, you don't want to use toxic batteries, and you definitely don't want to leave these out in places where they will eventually weather, but as a signal or a sign or as something short term that you can make with a very small amount of components, then you can make very bright ones, which cycle through all the available colors with just 2 components, the battery and the LED itself. And you can also make more complicated ones with that just have a resistor in line with it as well that could last for a very long time. So these are visible for quite some distance. And of course, yes, you do want to pick them up. All right, so that's all I have for LED throwaways. I've just been really enjoying these lately. I've been testing at the maximum range you can see these from, and it's actually pretty far. And I think for anybody that didn't know that these LEDs exist, where you just plug them in, they automatically cycle through all the available colors. They're so cool. I really think that they're great. The only thing is I don't necessarily recommend... actually, can I turn this down? There we go. I don't necessarily recommend... actually, I can... Sorry, I really like the way it looks now, and I completely forgot what I was going to not recommend. Aside from, of course, littering. But anyway, yeah, so these are fun little like circuits you can make if you're just getting started. Oh, right, I remember what I was going to not recommend. I don't recommend having two of these as like eyes or something, or it'll look very crazy. So they don't have a timing chip or something. They don't have like a clock. It's just like it just takes as long as it takes to go through the cycle. So they get out of sync very quickly. But I do think that they're really cool because if you want to make sure that that light off in the distance is actually your LED throwy that you pointed like at your house or something, then it's kind of hard to know if it's just some light off in the distance or if it is actually the thing that you put up there. So if you have one that cycles through all the colors, it makes it a lot easier to tell that you are in fact looking at the LED throwaway that you put there. So there we go. All right. So I also have a shout out. So this is the first time I've used this camera in a long time. So if you haven't seen it, it's this little one that's supposed to be for electronics. So it's very challenging to use because of how tight in it is, as you can see. All right, so I also want to give a shout out. So Angelina is not able to be on the stream today, as she usually is before one of her classes, but she is going to be hosting a couple different classes coming up very soon on the 23rd, which is really soon. Oh my gosh, yeah, that is 3 days from now. She's going to be having her aerospace cybersecurity drone hacking online workshop. So if you weren't able to come to the in-person workshop where this made its debut, this is going to be hosted online and you can check it out. It is a paid workshop, but it goes to support Angelina and also Null Space Labs. So if you want to join, all you need is a computer with Python 3 installed, and they're going to be going over a lot of really cool stuff. So countermeasures and defenses to radio hacking techniques against drones, radio communications protocol, drone digital forensics, all the different tools out there to examine drones, ground control system, drone identification and tracking, and drone systems and threat modeling. So Angelina did a really great job with this class. You can join in either on the Null Space Labs meetup page, or you can check out the Cyber Weapons Lab meetup page, and you will find it there. So we also have another in-person class coming up. So if you are in the Southern California area, we have our Cyber Weapons Lab aviation cybersecurity class. So this is going to be the final of Angelina's aerospace hacking trilogy. The other ones were her satellite hacking class and the online drone hacking class, which still has spots open if you're interested. This class is going to be talking about airplanes as a attack surface. And of course, because Angelina pitched this to me around 9/11, I had to remind her to make sure that this class doesn't get too far into all the offensive aspects and mostly keeps things defensive. But that doesn't mean it's not interesting. It's going to go into aircraft attack surfaces and threat modeling, Internet of Wings, threat modeling and mitigation, secure communications, ground control. And Angelina also has some fun labs identifying spoofed aircraft. So learning what spoofed aircrafts would look like using ADS-B, exploiting onboard entertainment systems on planes, and hacking into aircraft avionics. So this is going to be super cool. If you can make it, then you can check out Null Space Labs as well. I will put the link for both of these in our chat. But yeah, Null Space Labs is a great hackerspace to support. And Angelina has been doing a lot of these great aerospace classes. So she is currently at a drone expo in San Francisco where she's learning the latest about drone technology and probably getting more content for this class that's coming up. So yeah, if you're interested in drone and UAV hacking, definitely check out these upcoming classes. Always love to have her on as a guest, and she has lots of interesting things to show off. But alas, this week she's off learning how drones are evolving, which is terrifying to me. Halloween application ? I don't fully understand this question, except to say that so far we have decided that one of our team is going to be Tux, the Linux penguin, and I think we're gonna do chubby Tux, not like muscly Tux. So it's gonna be like one of those like inflatable suits. If you have a specific version of Linux to suggest, then we can put a spin on the Tux costume. But yeah. What are the prerequisites for that class? Basically, if you can install Python and follow along, then this is a very beginner-friendly class. It was designed for people who haven't worked with this sort of stuff in mind, and it's supposed to be like your first step into learning about all this stuff. It's not expected that you're an expert in any specific field. Like, you know, if you can put together a little bit of Python code from an example, then you should be completely fine. Oh, for yes. Yes. So these little cool lights are incredibly cool for special effects and things like that. If you have any, let's see, turn that off. If you have any applications that need like a little light source like this that's constantly cycling, I think these LEDs are so cool. You can find them on Amazon and AliExpress. So they definitely have applications for decorations. The only thing that's funny, and maybe you could exploit deliberately, is the fact that they change sync so quickly if you have two of them, and they're never going to be perfectly synced after like maybe like 30 seconds or so. They're going to start like getting a little bit off. So I just think it's so charming that you can have these simple, cheap little LEDs that have a circuit built into them that cycles through all the colors. And I did notice that the voltage matters. So like that's a pretty weak battery. It's been on its last legs for a while. I'm going to put it on one that I think is a bit stronger. And yeah, the LED is a lot stronger, and it really powers through that blue sequence like a lot better now, and like shows off those purple colors. So yeah, I really enjoy making things like this. I think that like being able to make simple electronics for art or for, you know, other sorts of fun projects are definitely something that is the advantage of doing a little bit of hardware hacking. And of course, you can also get these um, 3-color LEDs. So they have 4 legs. One of them is ground, and the others are the different colors. So if you want to make a custom, I think I put that on backwards. Yeah, there we go. So if you want to make a red LED, you can connect that leg, or you can make a blue one or a green one. These ones are cool too, because you can decide on what color you want your throwy to be at the last minute and just bend the leg into place. So yeah, these are some things that I've been kind of showing off at the electronics classes I've been doing as like the most simple circuit you can do, and then adding components to like be able to turn it up or down or like change the speed that it's operating at. That's all stuff that's kind of fun to learn about and do as you work with electronics. So that is most of the time we have this week. Let's see if there's any if there's any other questions. Okay, cool. So here's a question. This may have been answered already, but could you recommend a really simple beginner project to do with a microcontroller? I would say that there's a lot of CircuitPython projects that are really simple to do and are relatively fun. Some of them are as simple as just controlling a NeoPixel. Some of them are gonna be like the projects I've been doing, like using the capacitance of a pen to like adjust something. So by touching something, you can turn a light from, you know, red to purple or like something like that. I was even thinking of like making a mouse where like I attached different wires to like basically attach them to tinfoil and make like a big like virtual mouse on my desk and just touch parts of it to like navigate around and then click. There's a lot of simple projects you can do where you can take an example and then kind of go off of it to make your own thing, which I think is one of the most fun parts about working with these sorts of projects. So I would recommend CircuitPython projects for a beginner that has access to a couple components to kind of try them and see how they work. So start with the microcontroller, work with the built-in things first, like the capacitance to be able to use it as like a button, and then from there move on to adding a component like a buzzer or like an LED or a NeoPixel or something that allows you to take further and further steps in writing your own code. Now, if you just want like a totally like pre-done experience, then 2 things I could recommend would be, let's see, for the ESP8266, if you have one of those, then running like the dauthor project is a lot of fun. It has a web interface and it really shows off all the cool things you can do. If you have a microcontroller like the ESP32S2, like we have in our USB nuggets, then you can do things like run a deliberately vulnerable web server where you can learn how to do web application pen testing by attacking like a vulnerable like fake cat fancy login that is like set up on your own Wi-Fi network, and you can attack all day long and won't get in trouble. So those are some of the beginner projects I would recommend. CircuitPython in particular, I think they have good documentation for a lot of hardware-based projects where provided you have like a NeoPixel strip to plug in or a buzzer to plug in, most of the time they have pretty good documentation. If not, take a look at the beginning of this video where I used a piece of example code in CircuitPython, told it where my stuff was connected, and in 4 iterations of just feeding it the error that was happening, was able to write functional code for a microcontroller on the stream. So I just like live coded something, but I basically just made Bing do it. So like, this Bing AI is free. It can help you with some of the mistakes that might make working with a microcontroller a little frustrating at first, but start with basic components. Like I said, buzzers, LEDs, buttons, like maybe a screen or something that you plug in that's an output. Those are the sorts of things you can work with really quickly and make your own prototypes that do a certain thing. Like I made like a pill taking reminder for when I got sick and I had to take antibiotics. I kept forgetting because I was really out of it. So I made like a pill reminder that would like save a CSV file on the device and remind me the last time that I'd taken it. And then I'd press a button each time I did. It was pretty useful. So being able to like make little prototypes like that are just helpful, maybe a little alarm clock that like connects to Wi-Fi, checks the time and goes off if it's a certain time. These sorts of little IoT devices that have a Wi-Fi component can make them more interactive or make them a little smarter than they would be able to be without explicit programming. So those would be my recommendations. How do I get immigration sponsorship? I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. I am not an immigration specialist, nor have I worked with immigration before. So I would not be the one to ask on this one. I'm sorry. Yes. Someone has suggested that we add an arch flare to our Linux costume. Not a bad idea. Yes. So also in regards to LED throwies, yes. So like a couple times we would have like meetups or other things where we would have to get people to find a place or like be able to like get somewhere after dark. And LED throwies are a great way to be able to like leave breadcrumbs for people to let them know they're on the right trail or otherwise get them to come in a certain direction. But of course, you need to clean them up after they're done. They're not something that you should just leave out to rust. A lot of like geocaching people and other sorts of people like to leave these. But also you can make these last a lot longer with a rechargeable battery and something like a solar panel. You basically make them last like a very, very long time. But I'm sure that you guys have seen solar lights in Home Depot, so that's nothing impressive. Okay, so that is just about all the time we have for today. All right, so to sum things up, check out Angelina's workshops. She's been a co-host on the show a number of times, and she's doing some great stuff around aerospace cybersecurity. So we've got an in-person one at Null Space Labs, and then one virtually hosted by Null Space Labs. So if you grab your tickets from the Null Space Labs meetup group, then you will be putting money in the pocket of an excellent hackerspace in Los Angeles that hosts lots of great events. And I think that's mostly it. So we didn't have a ton of questions, mostly just people acknowledging that we still exist. And posting generally nice things. But one question we had is, I'm sorry if I'm crossing a line or a boundary, but are you gay, Kody? I tell my husband that you're my favorite cybersecurity channel and that you're gay, but I honestly don't know. Well, thank you for the respectful question. If you navigate to hack.gay, you will find all of my personal links that go to my TikTok, my Ready episodes, all of my like links to all of my content. So if that is a clue for you that hack.gay is my domain, then I can hint no more strongly. All right, so that's all I have time for today. Thank you everyone for your questions. Again, you can check out our Discord server where we have lots of great conversations. We were talking about some of the best soldering irons to use for some of these workshops that we've been working on. But if you want to carry on the conversation, you can go ahead and go to nugget.lol, nugget.lol, and talk more there. And also ask your questions, which I will answer. We have a little section for them right here. You can also support the stream by doing one simple thing. What is it? You can go to varonis.com/Kody, that's Kody, and check out the events that we're doing this week. It doesn't cost anything to go to this link, but they do check to see, who is actually going to this. And we have a lot of awesome free content, including some really interesting research this week that is going out. So if you're interested in supporting the stream, just go ahead and go to that link once a week and let them know that you are in fact watching, and they'll let me keep doing this. So yeah, Veronis lets me do this show every week, and they also let me go to do a lot of these conferences that I do. So very much appreciated to everybody who supports the stream and that shows up every week to do the Q&A. We will be doing the new stream, hopefully with Killian for the first time in quite some time. He is back from his adventure and hopefully feeling better. I believe that he got sick from his travels last week. But we'll be going through all the hacker news of the week. Maybe we'll have some resolution to this Las Vegas situation, which seems to still be ongoing, but we will sort it out all then. So see all of you later in the week. See you next time.